What is up, Epic Church?
Hey, everybody.
We are live for the lunchtime. We have been kind of over the last 4 weeks or so, just talking as a church around this theme of renew normal. And we've been talking a little bit about 2020 and the challenges that have come up in this year. And there's been quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
And it's left me saying, and I think you've said, Steve, and probably you who are watching as well, have said, man, I can't wait to get back to normal.
Yep.
You know?
Said that a few times.
And so we've been kind of like, asking this question of what if, instead of kind of going back to the way that things were. If you really think about it, things weren't great anyway.
True.
At least not all areas.
Yeah.
What if instead of going back to normal, what if instead we began to seek a new normal for our life? A healthier normal, one with better rhythms, one, again, that we're more in tune, I think, with what God wants to do in our life. And so what if we sought out a renewed normal? That's essentially what we've been asking in this series. And so, in the lead up to this week, we're kind of, I'm thinking about this idea of risk and what is familiar. And so Sunday, when we gather together, we'll be gathering together Sunday morning at 10:15 a.m., either here in person at Epic Community Church in Portland, Michigan, or online on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Either one, I'd encourage you to join us. But this Sunday, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about risk and familiarity. And one of the things that I notice with my family, like when we go on vacation, for example, and we're hanging out as a family, there are certain things that certain activities that maybe we want to do. For example, this last time we went to the zoo and they had a zip line. And I was like, who wants to do the zip line? I'm talking to my kids. Yeah. Nobody wanted to do it, right? So my oldest daughter, she ended up doing it. She did end up doing it, but nobody wanted to do it. And that, as a dad, I'm like, no, come on. I want to give you this experience, right? Because it's something that we don't often do. We don't often go zip lining, but nobody wanted to do it. So it's kind of a bummer for me, but it also, resonates with me because I'm that kind of person too. I don't necessarily like to try new things or risky things, and yet, when my kids do that, when they step into those times and they actually do something risky, when we get to the end of vacation and we're talking and we say, hey, what was the best part of vacation? 99% of the time they're coming back and they're saying, it was that one thing that we did. Yeah. It was the zip lining.
It was a risky thing.
It was the thing that I didn't want to do, but I, got up the courage to do. And so just thinking about, risk and it feels like some of the best experiences in our life are risky. Would you say that? What are some of the best experiences of your life, or maybe just one that makes sense there? Like you're like, yeah, that's true here.
Yeah, other than getting married and having kids, which is a risk in itself.
Those are risky things. I mean, both those things are risky, lifelong risk.
Yeah. But before I was married, I had a good friend of mine who was in the military, and he invited me to go rappelling. And I'm afraid of heights. And rappelling is you're cascading down a cliff.
Okay, so you're up on a cliff with a rope.
A
single rope in between you.
A single rope. Death. And you are looking over the cliff, and you are realizing that you're putting all your faith in this little rope.
Yeah, well,
and scary. And so it was scary.
For sure,
it's a big risk.
Risky. And how did you feel after that? Like, how did you feel after it was over?
Oh, the adrenaline was pumping.
Exhilarated.
I was so excited afterwards. I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
Just because at first I'm like, I don't know if I could do this, but then when I actually did it, I realized I actually did this. It was a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. So, and I think that leads me into this next thing I'm wondering, which is just why do we love risky activity so much? What is it, what is it about it that afterwards we're like, oh man, that just brought so much excitement to me, so much energy.
Yeah. I think with the adventure or risk, it really takes us outside of our own comfort zone, of the thing that we are familiar with. And we're wondering in our own minds, can I really do this?
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about that, last week I talked a little bit about, this new activity I'm doing, jujitsu.
Yeah.
Way outside of my comfort zone. But there is something to it, when you can get together with other guys, and I would say maybe it's not exactly true. My lights just shut off. Maybe
There it is.
there we go. Maybe it's not exactly true, but it's like it feels like it's inches within the end of your life, right? Or at least inches from getting hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you can kind of escape that feeling, like for the rest of your day, you're like, what could possibly, be as bad as that, as being on the edge of life? And in some respects, it gives you this exhilaration, this feeling of life. Risky things do that, they bring an excitement to us. So maybe on the other side of that then is what we would say is the familiar, right? Or the comfortable. The things that don't require much risk. For me personally anyway, I gravitate towards those things. And I think in some ways all humanity gravitates towards what is familiar in different ways in your life. So what do you think about that? What do you think? Why is the familiar have such a strong pull, for us?
Yeah, I really think it's because of that is what we know. So we always go back to the very thing that we know. And it just draws us back to there, because when we look outside of what we know, there's so many question marks, because we don't know what's going to happen if we venture outside of the very familiar that we have created for ourselves.
So it sounds like, it really sounds like what you're talking about there is control, that we have control over our familiar, or at least know it so well that it feels like we have control over it. And when we step out of that, we tend to lose that control. And that's a scary place to be. It really is, to do that. Fear. So you kind of touched on this, but fear kind of plays a part in this as well. Then there's this fear stepping out of the familiar.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the biggest thing that we are afraid of, I think, is what we might lose if we take the risk. We're afraid of loss. Or we're even afraid of, if I decide to take this risk, what happens if I fail? And so we become afraid of taking that step. And if we do fail at the event, then we start to say to ourselves, which is, well, I'm a failure. So I think that, really those are two of the biggest things, fear of what we might lose, and also fear of failure.
Fear of failure, that's good. You were talking about fear of loss, and it just reminds me of a story that we're going to talk about, this week from the Bible. It's in Numbers chapter 20. And it's about Israel. They had just left Egypt. God had just freed them from slavery in Egypt, and they're on their way to the Promised Land. And what we see there is they're just grieving loss, right? In that chapter, they kind of go through it's the grapes that they miss, it's the figs that they miss, it's the safe places for their livestock. They're just kind of listing off things that we used to have when we were in Egypt, but we no longer have anymore. And it brings them to a place of grieving, to the point where they're kind of angry at Moses. They blame him. Why did you take us from that place, the familiar, into the scary place of the wilderness? And that's so true for me too. When I think about what's familiar in my life, and losing, what's familiar is a very scary place to be. And yet, what I don't see them doing is kind of weighing that against what they're gaining. And in this case, they were gaining so much. They were gaining this new identity. They were no longer slaves anymore. They were children of God. They gained this new relationship with God
and freedom
in their lives. Freedom. That's another thing. They were free. They were no longer slaves, and so they weren't necessarily thinking about what they were gaining. And I think that's probably true for us too. Wouldn't you say that? A lot of times when we're kind of grieving the familiar, or the loss of familiar, that we don't often weigh it against what we're gaining.
No, I think a lot of times we get stuck into grieving what we have lost, that we never look beyond of what it is that we're gaining. Because oftentimes the thing that we're gaining is better than the thing that we lost.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, that resonates with me with this season of COVID that we're in. Just coming out of the pandemic, I think we're grieving a lot of things,
Well, I mean, which is okay to grieve. I think that we need to have that permission to be able to grieve, but not be stuck there either.
Yeah. I mean, let's think about it. Think about the things that we've lost, right? In the pandemic, we've lost, well, you and I used to love going to the movies.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd go to the theater like every other week, right? And so we haven't done that in a while.
It's been a few months.
We've lost the ability to do that. We've lost, we lost the ability to eat in some of our favorite restaurants.
Yeah.
We've lost the kind of ability to worship at least at full capacity, together. And those are maybe minor in comparison to some of the big things that people have lost, things like jobs. And even life has been lost, and a lot of life, during this pandemic. And so there's a lot there to grieve, but also I think, a lot to be gained as well. Like we could be stuck in this place. I think it's true. Like we have things to grieve. There are things to grieve there.
Absolutely.
And it's a valid emotion for us to feel. And yet we don't often think about what we're gaining. And we have gained, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of those things like that you've gained personally?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that last week. One of the big things that I was able to gain is time with my family, creating memories with my kids. It's I remember when COVID, when everything birthday, I was so excited about going out with my family, and then but we actually ordered zaytun, and we ate it around the table and just had laughs. And my kids still talk about that.
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean food. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great food.
But we definitely gained time with our family, and we've gained opportunities that maybe we didn't have or even thought about before.
Sure. A lot of people are working from home. They've not only have more time with family, but they've gained that commute before and after work. There's extra time there. And also have built now new rhythms into their life that maybe they wouldn't have had before. That now they can take advantage and use those, new rhythms as well for new things in their life. So just a lot of opportunity gained there. Also, just like you say, time with family, quality time, time to process, what God is doing in our life. And so just looking at some of our comments. I see Melinda just said, agreed. I know I've gained some cooking skills throughout COVID that I haven't had before.
I actually learned that my wife and family and I have decided to take up pierogi making. That has been so much fun that it's become almost a scheduled activity that we do together as a family. It was such a blast.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm glad that you are gaining some things, Melinda, and recognizing that. And we definitely recognize that we have gained some things. And I think it's crucial, for us as we move forward, that we continue to weigh those things that we're gaining against the things that we've lost. And, just get to the point where we can recognize God is doing new things. And he's still blessing us. He's still showing us his favor. And what can we do now with those opportunities? How can we use them to grow spiritually? How can we use them to be on mission for God? How can we do those things? And those are all things that we continue to talk about on Sunday. So it's been good we appreciate you spending these 15 minutes of your lunch with us. So thanks for joining us for this conversation. We look forward to just engaging with you some more on Sunday. Join us 10:15 a.m. Here in person at Epic Community Church in Portland, Michigan, or you can join us on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. You can like us, you can subscribe to us, you can do all the things that those kids now, say to do on the digital space. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.